It is my pleasure to introduce our first afternoon presentation, Emma Bohn. She is from West Des Moines and attends Valley High School. Emma is the daughter of Shelley and Michael Bohn, and her project is called Valley Girls STEM Conference. Emma?
Being a female in STEM, I am all too familiar with the negative connotations and stigmas surrounding girls in computer science and other STEM fields. Stigmas such as, you are not underrepresented in STEM, encouraging a specific gender into a certain field is bad, and empirical evidence undoubtedly indicates that this is bad. Now, obtuse opinions like these are what keeps girls from participating in and what continues the cycle of patriarchal establishments in STEM fields. Now, these opinions also drive me to create a better environment for girls in my community that are so smart and powerful and deserve to be in STEM. As for the first statement, you are not underrepresented in STEM. While this may be true for certain fields, such as medical and biomedical fields, this is not true for certain fields, such as computer science and engineering. Now, while biomedical and other biology fields have equal representation from both men and women, other fields have over 3/4 domination from men. And this also held true in my sophomore programming class at Valley High School. I was one of 4 girls out of a 30 student class. Seriously, 13% of the class was female, and I was one of those students. But this was a rather high number, where some classes at Valley only have 1 or even 0 female students in their class. My teacher, Mr. Gentry, addressed me and the other female students and urged us to inquire for other female students to join computer science. But I thought that it would be quite difficult to reach the other high school students, as many girls had already formed opinions about computer science and other engineering classes at Valley because they perceived it as geeky or nerdy. But one thing that I didn't think was hard was reaching elementary students. So I formed a club at an elementary school in my district and created Westridge Girls Code, an elementary club that met once a week for 10 weeks, and we did lots of curriculum involving Scratch and other computer science websites that they could build on in the future. And there was great success. Every week there was anywhere from 25 to 40 girls in attendance, and they loved it. It was tremendous, and they would always come back and encourage their friends to come back as well. This not only showed me that there was a difference in high school and elementary school, but also that I could create a conversation in the district that wasn't already being had by not only speaking at school board meetings, but also creating new events that weren't already being held in my school district. Entering my junior year, I continued with Westridge Girls Code, but I also attended a different event called Iowa Girls Code that was being held at Iowa State University, held by a college student named Kelsey Rubes. She was involved in computer science, and she provided a conference for all girls in computer science that was statewide. It was completely inspiring, and we discussed computer science, coding, and everything related to it, that all while empowered girls. I was completely inspired by this as well, and I thought that I needed to do something more than just Westridge Girls Code in my environment. This planted the seed that what later became FemStem in my brain, and I created something bigger in my community. I enlisted the help from Mr. Gentry, the teacher that originally enlisted my help, and he not only had been my teacher for 2 years, but he was also my academic mentor in the honors program at Valley, so he was completely willing to help me do whatever I needed. With FemStem, I started out just wanting a computer science conference, but then it became much more than that. Originally, it had no fun rhyming name, and there was no concrete plans for it. But over time, I had received feedback from my peers in my honors seminar classes, and I realized that holding an event for just computer science classes for girls was quite redundant, as there was less than 10 girls in computer science, and there were over 2,000 students at my school, which the demographic was useless. And so they suggested that I spread it to all girls in STEM. By opening up to all girls in STEM, this was completely useful, not just for computer science, but I could also reach women in STEM from all over the bracket. It suddenly clicked that I wanted to have speakers from all over the place, and they could talk about any field that they were in, and inspired all girls from the school. They discussed various jobs throughout the day, and at FemStem, I had 4 various speakers, and they all had various jobs. So first in the day, I had Sydney Rissler, and she was a very recent college graduate, and she worked in computer science and IT at Principal Financial Group, and she discussed her job there and how that contributed to the various workings at Principal. Then there was Jenny Krob, and she's a data scientist and vice president at Meredith Corporation. So she showed how data science works in the way of internet and how it can work there. Then there was Carrie Carsons, who's an environmental toxicologist, and she's in charge of seed coatings at Pioneer. And hers was a lot different than everyone else's, as she showed how she is in charge of making seed coatings and how it is helpful for making different plants, such as corn and soybeans and everywhere else around the world. Then there was Kelsey Rubes, who was the first person that I was inspired by at Iowa Girls Code, and she came to talk at my event, and she's lined up to graduate at semester, and then she will go on to work at Microsoft in the future. So a lot of these women discussed jobs that a lot of us had never even heard of before, and this kind of excited a lot of the girls at my conference, as they were really excited into the unknown of what could exist for their fields. And the speakers also provided activities such as guessing which seeds could go with which seed coats, and coding websites and information about college in the future. But as the day approached, one of the biggest hurdles was advertising for the girls that were going to be in attendance. It was set to be held on September 23rd, and this was 3 weeks into Valley's school year and 1 week after homecoming, which was the biggest event of the school year. FemStem was going to be open for girls in grades 7 through 12, but in West Des Moines, grades 7 through 12 are spread amongst 4 different school buildings. So this was kind of hard to reach all of them, as there were 2 middle schools, a 9th grade building, and the high school. It was kind of hard to have a unified mode of advertising, but I hung posters at every school, and from there, I emailed every math and science teacher at the middle schools, and then later on, I enlisted help from my teachers who emailed their teacher peers at other schools, and then I tweeted, I enlisted help from the district to tweet, my friends retweeted it, everything was via mobile, and then I talked at my school's club fair, which is an event 2 weeks prior to FemStem, and it's held every September, where clubs at Valley can talk about their activities, and students can peruse all the clubs at Valley and choose which ones they'd like to join that year. And at the club fair, lots of girls expressed interest and said that they'd be in attendance, but very few actually did, even though they took flyers. None really signed up on my Google form, which were all spread on the flyers. And this Google form was really easy to access. It was quite simple to fill out. It only asked for a few details. And I found it quite simple, and it was very easy to predict how attendance would be prior to the event. Right up until one submission prior to the event was provided the answers of what these that you see up here. So one submission actually entered all of these as their first name, their last name, their email, and other comments under the other suggestions. So with this, I kind of didn't faze me at first, but as time went on, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it really opened my eyes to see that FemStem was needed at Valley, because even though in their submission they responded with links and newsworthy articles that backed up their response, they were completely ignoring the problem at Valley that was showing there are no girls in computer science, there are no girls in engineering, and they didn't really show what was needed to be said. And in order for women in STEM to be successful, they need to be supported by their male counterparts in the same fields, much like Herbert Hoover supported Lou. And she was so interested in geological sciences, and this helped her form a bond with Herbert. And his support of her activism helped strengthen their relationship over time, and that really showed both of their character to broaden their activism. But going back to my project, one of the most exciting turn of events was regarding where FemStem would be located. So in May, when I was originally looking for a location, I thought that it would be held in my district's Learning Resource Center, one of the most popular event locations for various different things that are held in the community. But I then decided not to have it there because I would be put on the back burner if a district employee needed the space over me because I'm just a student. And then I decided to hold it at my school instead, in one of the bigger rooms, such as the library or the study hall rooms. And my associate principal said that this was A-okay and everything was set up until 3 days before the event. So on September 23rd, as the day of FemStem was scheduled to be held, there was also a massive debate tournament held that day at Valley. And apparently, It had been on the schedule for 3 years, but my lovely associate principal overlooked that, and he said that every room in the school would be used. And so I spent that Wednesday afternoon in the principal's office on the brink of tears, a situation I never thought I'd be in, for 40 minutes on the phone with a district employee looking for an alternative location. And although this was very stressful, informing the 25 girls who had signed up and my 4 speakers that there would be a different location as to every location on the poster, this ultimately had no effect on the success of the day. And in my books, the day was a success, because even though eventually only half of the girls that had signed up showed up, all of the girls that did come only wanted to be there, and they didn't really have anywhere else that they wanted to be. My advertising struggles were true, and about half of the girls were 7th graders and half of the girls were seniors. So there was not very many in between, but we made it work, and they paired up with one another, having a good discussion about activities, and they generated positive discussions about girl power. And we all addressed our opinions on the speakers, worked on engineering activities, we played brain games, we coded, and had a fun time with the company of our gal pals. But after FemStem was over, I kind of really reassessed why the day wasn't the most successful. And even though the attendance was slim, it was partially due to advertisements, but it was also partially due to the people at hand. And I realized that you can't reach a demographic that doesn't want to be reached. And a day full of STEM might not have been the proper way to get girls at Valley to dive into the idea of computer science. But every 7th grader in attendance was a previous member of Westridge Girls Code. So by encouraging girls in elementary school, they learn the opportunities they have earlier and stay motivated in STEM longer. So by promoting a positive attitude for girls in STEM, we can eventually change the visible problem at hand. We must start earlier than high school, and events and programs such as FemStem and Westridge Girls Code must continually provide an opportunity for girls in STEM to thrive. A new paradigm can take the place of worn-out old stereotypes, and girls in STEM can therefore thrive in what was once a space for boys and is now an opportunity for everyone. Thank you.
Did you have any mechanism that you used to assess the impact you had for your attendees?
Yeah, so at the end there was a little survey they filled out on a little piece of paper, but we just collected them at the end. So.
And what did you gain from
it? Yeah, each girl said that she had a really good time, and I think overall I had a couple parents tell me that afterward, mostly the senior girls, it really changed the way they looked at STEM. And so I think that was the most impactful, because the girls who had previously not been interested were then it changed their mind about it. So I think by changing the way the older girls see it, that was probably the most impactful, because it broadened their spectrum. So I think that was probably my biggest benefit.
In establishing the elementary school program, so it sounds like you learned that a lot of the event attendees were people that or students that you'd worked with previously. Do you have any follow-up? What was your involvement with that? Did you start that idea? And what did you learn from that, having your overall event?
The one at the elementary school? Oh, okay, so I started that one when I was a sophomore, just because I was really passionate about it when I was younger, and I thought that more girls should be, because before middle school, which is when the big change happens of when boys and girls change. But then, so I think realizing that and putting that forward into how the bigger event in high school would work, I think that the younger event is just a lot more impactful, because realizing how they can stay more involved through middle school and stay more passionate, then I think that would have a broader outcome on when they're older, and not just trying to grasp them when they are older. Because if you start them when they're younger and they learn more, then it's not just going to be trying to grab somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, rather than just grabbing an audience that doesn't have any idea what you're trying to get them to do.
What are your future plans?
I'm not really sure. I think I'll probably do something STEM related in college, but other than that, I really don't know where I'm headed.
Does that program in the elementary school that you started as sophomore still exist?
It does, yeah. So right now I'm the only person in charge of it, but this year, as part of my honors project, I'm working to create a more concrete curriculum so that when I graduate, it can both continue at the one elementary school, but also so that it can be more unified for all 8 elementary schools in the district, and then it'll just be more unified at every school.
So I'm not sure if this is a question or not, but I was really struck by your original sayings that people had submitted as part of the registration that showed there's still so much, I'll say, stereotype about views about women in STEM, et cetera. And so I'm wondering, did you think about how to address those? And that might not have even been such a relevant conversation with the folks who attended your workshop or your convention, because clearly they were interested and they wanted to participate. It's sort of who didn't register, who didn't attend, it feels like awareness and education and that kind of thing. So I don't know if you thought about that or considered it or thoughts about it.
Absolutely. So my mentor, Mr. Gentry, when I told him about it, he actually said that he was afraid of that happening when I released the Google form. So he said that he knew that that would happen. And I wasn't aware of that happening. I guess I was too naive. And then I guess that would just be a bigger conversation for the district to have. I guess when I was a sophomore is when I talked at the school board about my original club, the one at the elementary school. And so I think maybe generating another conversation with the school board or a broader conversation with like computer science classes, that would just be a bigger way to get that taken care of. But I think other than that, I don't know, it's just, that's really struck me. And at this point I kind of regret making it anonymous, because if it weren't, I could get to the bottom of it, but yeah. Yeah, I can't.
Understand.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.